Chosen one, take a moment and quiet the noise around you. There are days when life feels ordinary, and then there are moments that seem to stop you in your tracks. Perhaps that's why you're here now. Perhaps you were simply looking for encouragement, or perhaps you're carrying questions that no one else knows about. Maybe you've been praying in silence. Maybe you've been waiting for an answer that feels delayed. Maybe you've wondered if your efforts, your faith, or your hope have been forgotten. If any of that sounds familiar, then stay with me for the next few minutes. The title of this message speaks about the next hour. Rather than treating it as a prediction, think of it as an invitation to pause, reflect, and become attentive. Sometimes the greatest changes in our lives don't begin with a dramatic event. They begin with a single moment of clarity, a decision to trust, a conversation, or the courage to take one faithful step forward. Many people spend years looking for certainty while overlooking the quiet opportunities already in front of them. They expect lightning from the sky, yet miss the gentle direction that can reshape an entire future. What if this next hour became the moment you stopped living in fear? What if it became the moment you chose hope over doubt? What if the answer you've been searching for isn't found in panic, but in stillness, wisdom, and faith? No one can promise what will happen in the next 60 minutes, but every one of us has the opportunity to decide how we will respond to whatever comes next. So don't rush away. Stay until the end. Listen with an open heart. Now, I want you to think back to a moment in your life when everything seemed to be falling apart. A moment when you couldn't understand why one door after another kept closing. You prayed. You waited. You hoped. But nothing appeared to change. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And somewhere along the way, you began asking yourself a question that so many people quietly carry inside their hearts. Have I been forgotten? If you've ever asked that question, you're not alone. Every person who has accomplished something meaningful has faced moments of silence. Moments when they couldn't see the next step. Moments when giving up felt easier than taking one more step forward. But here's something worth remembering. The darkest hour isn't always proof that you're lost. Sometimes, it's simply the place where your character is being shaped. Think about a sculptor working on a masterpiece. Before anyone admires the finished work, there are countless strikes of the hammer. Pieces fall away. Edges are removed. The stone doesn't understand why it's being broken. Yet every strike has a purpose. Life often feels the same. There are relationships that end without explanation. Opportunities disappear. Dreams are delayed. Plans suddenly change. And every one of those moments can leave us wondering whether anything good is still ahead. But what if those moments weren't only obstacles? What if they were preparing you for something you couldn't yet see? Many people stop one step before discovering what persistence could have brought them. Not because they lacked talent, not because they lacked ability, but because discouragement convinced them the story was already over. Don't let that happen to you. The chapter you're living today does not have to become the conclusion of your story. Every sunrise begins while the world is still covered in darkness. Every harvest begins with a seed that no one notices. Every meaningful journey begins with one decision that almost everyone else overlooks. So ask yourself honestly, what have you allowed fear to steal from you? Has it stolen your confidence, your peace, your willingness to try again? Or has it convinced you that your best days are already behind you? If that's what you've been believing, then maybe today is the day to challenge that belief. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because hope grows stronger the moment you refuse to surrender it. Look at how far you've already come. You've survived days you once thought would break you. You've carried burdens that other people never even knew existed. You've kept moving, even when no one applauded your courage. That tells me something important. There is a strength inside you that difficult seasons could not destroy. And sometimes, that's the greatest victory of all. So don't measure your life only by what you haven't received. Measure it by the person you've become while waiting. Because patience isn't empty. It shapes wisdom. It builds resilience. And it prepares you for opportunities that rushed decisions often miss. As you continue listening, keep one thought in your heart. What if the opportunity you've been waiting for doesn't arrive looking the way you expected? What if it comes quietly, as one conversation, one unexpected phone call, one decision, or one moment of courage? Hold that question, because in the next part, before we continue, I want you to pause for just a moment and think about the moments that changed your life forever. Was it always something loud? Was it always something dramatic? Or did some of the biggest turning points begin with something so small that you almost ignored it? A single conversation, one unexpected opportunity, a decision you nearly postponed, or a quiet moment that completely changed the direction of your life. Many people spend years waiting for extraordinary signs, while the greatest opportunities often arrive disguised as ordinary moments. That's why it's so easy to overlook them. Distractions become louder than wisdom. Fear becomes louder than faith. Doubt becomes louder than hope. And before we realize it, we've convinced ourselves that nothing meaningful is happening. But life has a remarkable way of surprising those who remain attentive. Think about how many times you've looked back and said, "If I had only known then what I know now." We've all said those words, not because we lacked intelligence, but because clarity often comes after the moment has already passed. That's why awareness matters. Every day presents us with choices. Some seem insignificant, others feel impossible, yet each one quietly shapes the future we're building. Perhaps the greatest question isn't, when will everything change? Perhaps the better question is, am I becoming the kind of person who's ready when change arrives? Because opportunities don't only test our abilities, they also reveal our character. Will we respond with courage or retreat because uncertainty feels uncomfortable? Will we keep moving forward or allow yesterday's disappointments to decide tomorrow's possibilities? These are the questions that quietly define our lives. If you've been carrying disappointment for a long time, don't let it become your identity. Disappointment is an experience. It doesn't have to become your destination. There's still room to grow. There's still room to learn. There's still room to begin again. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who continue moving, even when progress feels invisible. If that's where you are today, keep going. One step, one decision, one act of courage at a time. Because no meaningful journey is completed all at once. It's built through consistent choices made when no one else is watching. Now I want to leave you with one final thought before we move into the next part. Imagine waking up 1 year from today, looking back at this very moment. Would you be grateful that you chose courage over fear? Or would you wish you had taken the first step when the opportunity was right in front of you? Don't answer too quickly. Let that question stay with you. Now let me ask you something. How many opportunities have passed through your life simply because fear convinced you to wait for the perfect moment? The truth is, the perfect moment rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive with flashing lights. It doesn't come with absolute certainty. More often, it whispers. It invites. It asks you to take one small step before revealing the next one. Many people spend years waiting until they feel completely ready. But those who make the greatest progress usually discover something different. They realize that confidence isn't something you have before you begin. Confidence is something you build because you begin. Think about a child learning to walk. No child waits until they're guaranteed never to fall. They stumble, they lose balance, they stand again. And every step teaches them something the previous step could not. Life works much the same way. Growth isn't found in comfort, it's found in movement. Every challenge teaches patience. Every setback teaches resilience. Every disappointment can become a lesson if we're willing to learn from it instead of allowing it to define us. Perhaps you've been telling yourself, maybe it's too late for me. Maybe I missed my chance. Maybe other people are meant for greater things, but not me. If those thoughts have been living in your mind, ask yourself this: are they facts or are they fears? Because fear has a remarkable ability to sound convincing. It tells you to stay where it's familiar. It reminds you of every failure. It magnifies every uncertainty. But it rarely tells you about the possibilities waiting on the other side of persistence. Take a moment to remember every obstacle you've already overcome. There were seasons you thought would never end, conversations you thought you would never recover from, losses that felt impossible to carry. Yet here you are, still standing, still searching, still hoping. That alone tells a powerful story. It tells the story of someone who has endured more than they often give themselves credit for. And perhaps that's the lesson hidden in this very moment. Strength isn't measured by never facing hardship. It's measured by continuing to move forward even when the road feels uncertain. So instead of asking, "Why has this journey been so difficult?" consider asking, "What kind of person is this journey shaping me to become?" Because the answer to that question may reveal more than you've ever expected. Every season leaves something behind. Some leave scars, others leave wisdom. The choice is whether we allow those experiences to make us bitter or make us wiser. As we move into the next part, I want you to carry one thought with you. What if the breakthrough you've been hoping for doesn't begin with a dramatic event? What if it begins the moment you choose to see yourself and your future with new eyes? Keep that question close. Part 5. Now, if you stayed with this message until this point, I want you to notice something that many people never stop to consider. Life is not only shaped by the moments that everyone celebrates, it's often shaped by the quiet decisions that no one else ever sees. The decision to keep believing when disappointment feels louder than hope. The decision to choose integrity when taking the easier path would seem more rewarding. The decision to show kindness even after you've been hurt. Those choices may feel small in the moment, but over time, they quietly become the foundation of an entirely different future. Think about an architect building a great structure. Before anyone admires the finished masterpiece, countless unseen hours are spent laying the foundation. No one applauds the foundation. Most people never even notice it. Yet without it, nothing lasting could ever be built. Your life is no different. There are seasons when it feels as though nothing important is happening. The days seem ordinary. The progress feels invisible. The waiting becomes exhausting. But not every season is meant for visible growth. Some seasons are meant for deep roots, roots that cannot be seen, roots that quietly strengthen everything above them. And perhaps that's why patience can feel so difficult. Because we naturally celebrate what is visible. We celebrate the harvest, but we rarely appreciate the long season of preparation that made the harvest possible. If you are in a season of waiting, don't assume that waiting means nothing is happening. Sometimes waiting is where wisdom grows. Sometimes waiting is where character becomes stronger. Sometimes waiting gives us the clarity we never would have found if everything had happened immediately. Take a moment and ask yourself, what have these past challenges taught you? Have they made you more compassionate, more resilient, more grateful for the people who stood beside you? Or have they revealed strengths you never knew you possessed? Those lessons matter. Because growth is rarely measured only by what we gain. It's also measured by who we become along the journey. As you continue listening, I want you to remember something. Every meaningful story has moments when the main character wonders if the struggle is worth it. Every meaningful story has chapters that seem confusing before the ending makes sense. Real life often works the same way. We rarely understand the purpose of difficult seasons while we're living through them. Understanding often arrives only after we've walked beyond them. So don't judge your entire future by the chapter you're living today. A single chapter never tells the whole story. And perhaps that's the reminder you needed today. Keep moving, keep learning, keep growing. Not because the road is easy, but because each faithful step shapes the person you're becoming. Now, before we move into the next part, I want to leave you with one final question. Imagine that 1 year from now, you look back on this very season of your life. Will you remember it only for the obstacles you faced? Or will you remember it as the season that quietly transformed you into someone stronger, wiser, and more prepared than you ever thought possible? Hold that thought. And now we've reached the end of this journey together. If you've listened from the very beginning until this moment, then I want to thank you for giving yourself these few moments to pause, reflect, and look inward. Throughout this message, we've talked about waiting. We've talked about uncertainty. We've talked about the quiet moments that often feel invisible. But perhaps the greatest lesson is this: your future is not determined by your hardest day. Every person carries a story that others cannot fully see. Some carry disappointment. Some carry loss. Some carry unanswered questions. Some smile on the outside while silently fighting battles within. If that's where you find yourself today, remember this. Your present circumstances do not define your ultimate destination. Every chapter of life has a purpose. The joyful chapters teach gratitude. The painful chapters teach endurance. The uncertain chapters teach patience. And together, they shape a wiser, stronger, more compassionate person. Take a moment to think about how far you've already come. Think about the obstacles you survived, the fears you faced, the nights you thought would never end, the mornings when getting out of bed felt difficult. Yet somehow, you're still here, still searching, still learning, still choosing to move forward. That is not weakness, that is quiet courage. Never underestimate the strength it takes to continue when no one else sees the struggle. As you leave this video today, don't focus only on what hasn't happened yet. Instead, look at what has already changed within you. Perhaps you've become more patient, more understanding, more resilient, more willing to appreciate the small blessings that once went unnoticed. Sometimes the greatest transformation begins inside, long before anyone else can see it on the outside. And maybe that's the reminder you needed most today. Don't compare your journey to someone else's. Everyone walks a different path. Everyone grows at a different pace. The important thing is not whether your journey looks like someone else's. The important thing is whether you're continuing to take faithful, meaningful steps forward. So whatever challenge you're facing, don't let fear make your decisions. Don't let yesterday's disappointment steal tomorrow's possibilities. Choose wisdom over panic. Choose hope over despair. Choose perseverance over surrender. Because every meaningful life is built one decision at a time. And perhaps, when you look back months or even years from now, you won't remember this as the day everything around you suddenly changed. You'll remember it as the day you decided to change how you looked at your life. Sometimes that's where every lasting transformation begins. If this message encouraged you, take one lesson from it and put it into practice today. Reach out to someone you've been meaning to call. Forgive someone you've been holding resentment toward. Take the first step toward a goal you've been postponing. Spend a few quiet moments in prayer or reflection. Whatever it is, let today's encouragement become tomorrow's action. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What is one area of your life where you're choosing hope instead of fear? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story may become the encouragement someone else needs to read today. If this message brought you peace or strength, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more messages of hope and encouragement, and share it with someone who may need it right now. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of your heart, keep your faith, keep your hope alive, and remember, the future is shaped not only by what happens to us, but by the courage, wisdom, and compassion we choose to carry into each new day. Until next time, may you walk forward with confidence, peace, and renewed hope. Thank you for watching. Before you leave, there's one final thought I'd like to place in your heart. Perhaps months from now, you won't remember every sentence you heard today. You won't remember every example, every question, or every pause. But I hope you'll remember one simple truth. The person you become is always more valuable than the comfort you leave behind. Life has a way of changing us in quiet moments, not only in the victories everyone celebrates, but in the silent battles no one ever sees. Those unseen moments. Those moments when you choose to stand instead of surrender, to forgive instead of holding on to bitterness, to hope instead of giving in to fear. Those are the moments that shape your future. One day, you'll look back at this season of your life, the uncertainty, the waiting, the questions that kept you awake at night, and you'll realize they weren't only obstacles, they were teachers. They taught you patience when everything felt delayed. They taught you gratitude when even the smallest blessing became meaningful. They taught you compassion because you learned what it felt like to struggle. Never underestimate what difficult seasons can produce inside a willing heart. Some people become harder after pain. Others become wiser. Some become bitter. Others become kinder. The difference is rarely found in what happened to them. The difference is found in what they chose to do with what happened. That's a choice every one of us has, every single day. So as you move forward from this moment, don't carry only your disappointments. Carry your lessons. Carry your courage. Carry the wisdom you've gained through every challenge you've overcome. Because those things are worth far more than any temporary success. And remember this, your story is still being written. Today is not the final page. It is only another chapter, another opportunity to choose hope, another opportunity to grow, another opportunity to become the person you were always capable of becoming. So walk into tomorrow with confidence. Walk with kindness. Walk with patience. Walk with purpose, and when life becomes difficult again, as it sometimes will, remember how far you've already come. Remember every mountain you thought you couldn't climb, every storm you believed would never end, every challenge that somehow became part of your strength. You are stronger than yesterday, wiser than yesterday, more prepared than yesterday. Not because life has been easy, but because you refuse to let hardship write the ending of your story. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this message encouraged you, let me know in the comments. What is one lesson life has taught you that made you a stronger person? Someone reading your answer may find the encouragement they need today. Until we meet again, take care of your heart, keep learning, keep growing, and never stop believing that every new day is another opportunity to write a better chapter than the one before it. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next message. If you're still here, then perhaps this message has already done something important. Not because it gave you every answer, but because it invited you to ask better questions. Sometimes we spend so much of our lives searching for certainty that we forget to appreciate the quiet strength we gain through the search itself. Think about the person you were 5 years ago, the dreams you carried, the fears that kept you awake, the challenges that seemed impossible to overcome. If you could go back and meet that younger version of yourself today, what would you say? Would you tell them that every plan worked out perfectly? Probably not. Would you tell them that life became easy? Of course not. But perhaps you would tell them something far more valuable. You would tell them that they were stronger than they believed, that every difficult season taught them something no classroom ever could, that every disappointment shaped their character, that every setback became part of a larger story they couldn't yet understand. Life has a remarkable way of revealing its lessons slowly, not all at once, not in a single conversation, not in one extraordinary moment, but through hundreds of ordinary days that quietly transform us. That's why patience is so powerful. Patience doesn't mean standing still. It means continuing to move forward even when progress feels invisible. It means choosing hope even when the outcome remains uncertain. It means believing that today's effort still matters, even when today's results are small. Many people abandon their dreams because they expect instant change, but meaningful growth rarely happens instantly. A tree doesn't become strong overnight. It grows ring by ring, season by season, storm by storm, and perhaps that's a picture of our own lives. Every challenge adds another layer of wisdom. Every act of perseverance strengthens our character. Every time we choose compassion instead of anger, integrity instead of compromise, courage instead of fear, we become someone different than we were yesterday. Take a moment to think about the people who have inspired you most. Were they people who never struggled? Or were they people who kept going despite their struggles? More often than not, the people who leave the greatest impact are those who learn to transform pain into purpose. Not by pretending life was easy, but by refusing to let hardship have the final word. As you continue your own journey, remember this. You don't have to have every answer before taking the next step. You don't have to eliminate every fear before choosing courage. You don't have to see the entire road before beginning the walk. Sometimes the next faithful step is enough. One conversation, one act of kindness, one difficult decision, one day lived with honesty and purpose. Those small choices accumulate over time. They become habits. Those habits become character. And character becomes the legacy we leave behind. So don't underestimate today's decisions simply because they seem ordinary. Extraordinary lives are often built from ordinary choices repeated consistently. If you're facing uncertainty right now, don't rush to assume that uncertainty is the end of the story. Treat it as an invitation to grow, to learn, to become wiser, to become more compassionate, and to keep moving forward with humility and hope. Before this message ends, I want to leave you with one final reflection. Imagine yourself a year from today. Imagine looking back at this exact moment. What decision would make your future self proud? What conversation have you been avoiding? What goal have you been postponing? What act of forgiveness have you been delaying? Don't wait for the perfect time. Begin with the next right step. Because while we cannot control every circumstance that comes into our lives, we can always choose the attitude, the integrity, and the courage with which we face them. And perhaps that choice is where real transformation begins. Thank you for staying on this journey. May you continue to seek wisdom, live with purpose, encourage those around you, and never lose sight of the quiet strength that is built one faithful step at a time. Your story is still unfolding. Keep writing it with courage, keep walking with hope, and never stop becoming the person you are capable of being.